So today I thought it'd be a little fun to kind of start at the beginning when it comes to Hermes and give you all a beginner's guide to Hermes leathers. Now listen, I am not claiming to be an expert. I've only been collecting these things for a couple of years now, but when you're first getting started, when you're first dipping your toe into that beautiful orange pond, it can be a little overwhelming. There are literally countless amounts of leathers, both in production, discontinued, retired, whatever you want to call it, and it can be a little difficult deciding what's the right leather for you, where you want to start, what's most important to you. So we're just going to start off at the very beginning. We're going to talk about the 4 most common Hermes leathers and then the leathers they can kind of be confused with or leathers they replaced, whatever the story is. But before we get into all that, hey guys, my name's Caleb. I post luxury and lifestyle related content every Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. So if that's something you're into, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Consider joining our membership. We have an awesome engaged community. We're meeting up for the 2nd annual members meetup with lots of luxury shopping. It is going to be a whirlwind experience. So today we're gonna start off with the most common leathers. When you think of Hermes, like gosh, there is so much history and heritage, literally heritage leathers to consider, but like what is the right leather for you? I'm gonna start off with the one that I started off with, Togo. Now, one of Hermes's most popular leather just happens to be Togo, and it's been around since 1997. Now, it's named after an African country, and it debuted during Hermes's Year of Africa. Now, the runways from that year, you guys, especially spring, summer, are just sublime. They're amazing, so I'll have them linked down below. Go and check them out. Now, with Togo, it starts out its life as a female calfskin, and because of that, it's a little bit more supple, it's a little bit more soft, but yet it still retains a beautiful, natural, pebbled grain. Now, when it comes to Hermes leather, grained leathers are going to be the ones that can handle scratches the best. That's going to be your Togos, that's going to be your Epsom, your Clemence, your Chev leathers. Those are going to be like your true workhorse leathers when it comes to Hermes, especially Epsom, which we'll dive into here in a minute. Now, when it comes to Togo, this is what the majority of the Birkins and Kellys are going to be made in, especially retorn styles. Now, because Togo leather is so soft and supple, this is going to lend itself easily to those retorn styles like the Birkin and the Kelly most commonly come in, because these styles are made inside out. Once they're completed, they then have to quickly turn them right side out, so that way there aren't any creases, any damage to the leather. Now, because of the nature of this leather, that is going to make it a little bit more slouchy, which you can see over here with my Kelly. But if you're into that look, but you want a little bit more structure, something a little bit more heavier, then check out Clemence. Clemence is another amazing grained leather from the house of Hermes. Now, when it comes to Clemence, Clemence actually starts its life out as a male calfskin, unlike Togo leather. The Clemence, it's much more rigid, much more structured, but unlike Togo, it has more of a flatter grain, larger grain, but overall more flat grained. And what's interesting enough with these two leathers, they're amazing to the touch. They're very tactile, they're very textural, but they can almost feel a little dry when you're touching them. So when you're out shopping, or especially if you're at the Real, things like that, don't worry if your Togo feels a little dry. That's totally par for the course. Now let's switch things up and we're going to talk about Epsom, which is Hermes's 2nd most popular and I think most affordable leather available. Epsom leather originally replaced Courchevel. Courchevel was the Epsom of the 90s and early 2000s. Personally for me, I prefer the Courchevel grains over the Epsom grains, but that's just personal preference. You'll gain your own as you're collecting these things and shopping for these things. But Epsom leather, it actually starts its life out as a male calfskin. Now, much like Prada Saffiano, it's still a very high quality leather, but it's going to be a little bit more processed. You're going to have that artificial graining stamped into the leather, but that's going to make it a little bit more durable, a little bit more scratch resistant, a little bit more water resistant. It comes to a matter of preference. Epsom is going to be lighter than your Togos, Clemences, things like that, but it's also going to be, you're not going to have that same like natural leather feel that you're going to find with some of these other leathers. Now, more often than not, you'll see a lot of like the Birkins and Kellys and Cellier done in the Epsom leather because it lends itself so beautifully to that rigid structure design that the Cellier calls for. Now, when it comes to SLGs, Epsom is absolutely perfect because when things are rolling around inside of your bag, it's a little bit easier for these things to kind of take a beating. So if you're in the market to kind of add to your Hermes collection, like maybe say you've already got your Birkin or your Kelly, now you need the wallet, like I do, then definitely check out Epsom leather if that's something that you're worried about. If not, no worries. There's a couple more variations of Epsom, and one of the more recent ones is Madame leather. This was originally introduced just 5 years ago in 2019, and this comes from a female calfskin. It's also embossed like Epsom, but it's going to be a much smaller, more finer grain, so it's not going to look as processed, especially from a distance. It's going to look more just like it's hard to explain, but it's just a much tighter, smaller grain, which in my opinion, I do prefer. So if you're looking for like a better price point, something that's more durable, or if this is like your first Birkin or Kelly, Epsom could be a great place for you to start. It's a little bit more carefree than your Togos, but at the end of the day, I have heard rumors. I've heard it both ways. Like, and that's what's so frustrating when you're collecting or learning about Hermes. Like, there is just so much information. Some of it's wrong, some of it's hearsay. But from what I've heard that Epsom and like Courchevel, Madame, Monsieur, those are all a little bit harder for the House of Hermes to like spa and make look perfect, whereas like your Togos, your box leathers are much easier. It can be done, but I don't know what amount of success a spa can bring to a damaged Epsom piece. So just something to keep in mind. Now, next up, let's talk about one of my absolute favorite leathers, Swift. Now, Swift was actually introduced around 2004, 2005 to replace Gulliver leather. Now, Swift, it is made from nubuck, which is a male calf skin, and this is actually one of a very small handful of Hermes leathers that truly shows the color that it's intended to be. Now, what's fun about Hermes leathers collecting these beautiful things is blue jean is going to look one way in Togo, Epsom, Clemence, Swift, Box, and no two leathers hold the color the same, but when it comes to the trueness of the color, Swift is actually the barometer you want to go off of. I love, love, love Swift leather. Now, Swift leather, it does kind of get a bad rap. And is this like the perfect first Birkin or Kelly leather? Only you can decide that. I wasn't brave enough, even though I absolutely love Swift leather. But because of its soft, supple nature, it is a little bit more prone to scratches. Remember, your grain leathers, your Togos, your Epsoms, those are going to be more scratch resistant. Now we're talking about the smoother, more supple leathers. These are going to be the ones they have to be a little bit mindful with. It's also very slouchy. So if you want like a big, relaxed, beautiful Birkin and a rich jewel tone, Swift is going to be the color for you. I fell in love with the Swift Birkin, and I am low-key kicking myself for not having gotten that at the time, but we live and learn. There are more Swift Birkins out there. Now, fun fact, Jonathan is another kind of, it's in the Swift category, if you will. And remember, Swift replaced Gulliver. Jonathan Swift wrote Gulliver's Travels, so you can kind of see where I love that about Hermes. They're always doing like name play and things like that. But Jonathan Leather was introduced in 2018. It's very similar to Swift, so it's going to have a lot of those same absorbent qualities. It's still a beautiful, soft, very, even though it's a smooth leather, it's still very textural. Like you can feel like kind of a fine grain to it. But Jonathan Leather has more of a sheen to it than Swift offers. So it's almost, it's like right in that sweet spot between Swift, which is one of my favorites, and my absolute favorite, Box Leather. You guys, I love box leather. This is a heritage leather for the house. And when you hear the term heritage leather, that means it's one of those like special archival leathers that the house is just, it's perfected. It is a stunning leather. And quite frankly, I am so happy that my first Birkin came in box leather because, as you all know, the initial Birkin was done in box leather for Jane Birkin herself. So it all just perfect synergy. I love that. Now, box leather itself, it is actually named after Box, who is an English shoemaker. That's a whole video for another day, but the box leather method came from that shoemaker. It's made from young cattle. Again, it's pretty rigid itself. Now, box leather, it is a beautiful leather to work with. This you're gonna find in most of the original Kellys, so like all your vintage Kellys are going to typically be box leather. The first Birkin, box leather. And what I love most about it is its sheen. Now it has this beautiful shine to it, not like an in-your-face patent sheen, but like just like a beautiful, rich brushed leather sheen. And over time, it does scratch. Like, don't get me wrong, it is not a leather for the faint of heart, and you have to be very mindful with it because water on box leather could be instant death. If you let water sit on the surface for too long, it will eventually blister. So don't get, for my friends who live out in Seattle, rainy London, don't buy a box Birkin and expect to be able to carry it every day without checking the Weather Channel, because trust me, here in Chicagoland, I still check every time before I take this bag out. But I love box leather, you guys, and eventually over time, yes, it does scratch, but all those scratches will eventually just bleed together, blend together, and create the most beautiful mirror finish. Now, one of the things that is so beautiful about Hermes is the spa aspect. And in my personal opinion, I have seen just beautiful things done at the spa to box leather bags. Now, make sure to check out my friend Jamie over at Luxe Petite. She has the most beautiful box Kelly, and when she bought it, had some issues with it, had some things going on. She sent it off to Hermes Spa, about 6 months, I think, came back. It looks like a brand new bag, you guys. Like box, you have to be a little bit more considerate with it, but of all the leathers, it is probably the most forgiving. The next leather that we're going to talk about, it's a fairly new leather. This one was debuted in 2007, which was almost 20 years ago. make a man feel old, but this is Tadelakt Leather. Now, this is most similar to Box, and they often get confused, so make sure that you kind of look at the listings, because even like a lot of these larger sellers, you guys, they don't know if they have Togo or Clemence, they don't know if they have Epsom or Madame. Like, a lot of these can get confused, and that's why we're talking about these today. But Tadelakt, even though it is very similar to Box, it is much less shiny. It's still made from young cattle, but the reason that it's less shiny is because it's more brushed than Box leather is. This leather, it is a stunning leather, you guys. It's more often than not reserved for SLGs, smaller bags like littler Kellys, but you guys, if you can get your hands on Tadelakt leather, it is absolutely stunning. I still prefer Box. I like that sheen. Now, this, you guys, only scratches the surface. Like, Hermes has so much more different leather types than just the 8 we talked about today. So if you want to see more of like the heritage leathers or the exotics, let me know down in the comments. We can kind of make this a series because I love learning about this stuff. And there's a lot of information out there, like I said, not all of it's good. So with that being said, thank you for joining me today. Let me know down in the comments, do you have like a preference with any of these leathers? Like, are you more of a Togo person? Is Epsom your leather? Are you like me and just like an absolute Box fanatic? Let's get a conversation going. Let's be little H geeks down in the comments. And until next time, guys, stay safe, have fun. I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye-bye.